So, you may have seen the previous video I made about this, and I decided to delete it for a couple of reasons, but mostly just because I think I was too harsh in my critique there, and I wasn't as objective as I could have been. So, I wanted to apologize for that, but also I still want to make a video about this just to get my thoughts out on this game because we have a very complicated relationship, Mega Man Zero and I. The first video had a still screenshot from Command Mission, so it wasn't really much of a video. So this time I have some gameplay from ZX Advent. Don't ask why I'm playing ZX Advent for the Zero critique video. It's because I felt like playing ZX Advent. And yes, it's casual scenario mode with save assist enabled. Don't judge me too harshly. So, first off, I want to start with my history with the series. I got into Mega Man through the X series, and I was a really big fan of Zero. He was actually pretty much the reason why I started playing the games. I mean, what's not to love? Well, after I was done with the X series, I decided to try out the Zero series. I knew that they existed beforehand, but I wanted to do the series in order. I'd heard that the Zero games were really good, so I went in with high expectations, and in retrospect, that was probably my mistake. Just to clarify, I don't hate these games. I have a complicated relationship with them, like I said in the intro, but I don't hate them. There are some things I really like in them, actually. There's just as many things that I don't like, and that's the problem. My opinion on the Mega Man Zero series is not the same as the general fandom consensus. So, gameplay wise, I don't really have a lot to say. I think the gameplay is good overall. I played in casual scenario mode, so that skewed my opinion somewhat. But I actually really enjoyed Zero One and Zero Two. It was in Zero Three that I started not liking the gameplay as much, mainly because I had trouble using the recoil rod. And in Zero Four's intro, I didn't really enjoy the gameplay at all, so I just quit after that. Esperanto is still a top tier theme, though. Story is where this critique gets interesting. Basically, almost all of my problems with Mega Man Zero come down to the writing. And almost all of those problems come down to Zero himself. I do not enjoy the way he is portrayed in these games. I'll be straight up with you guys. I think Zero is out of character. He comes off as kind of a piece of cardboard for the first three games, and only really gained some of his personality back toward the end of Zero Four, which, in my opinion, is too little too late. There were also several moments in the story where I felt that Zero did not react appropriately or in character to what was happening, and probably the best example of this is at the end of Zero Two when El Piso destroys X's body. Zero doesn't quite react as strongly as I'd expect him to. And then when El Piso does that thing where he basically almost directly quotes Iris, there is no response whatsoever from Zero, which is strange because Iris had such a profound impact on him that even if he has amnesia, he should at least subconsciously remember her. I don't know, that's probably just me though. See, I don't really like amnesia as a plot device. In this particular case, I feel like it was used as an excuse to make Zero act out of character because, like I said, he only starts really acting like himself again toward the end of Zero Four, and by then the amnesia has had plenty of time to wear off. I know there's the whole plot point in Zero Three with him being in a copy body, but his soul is the same, isn't it? Also, just in general, the writing in the games feels kind of bare bones and skeletal. I know that's primarily because of the medium they used, and there's a lot of lore and story on the drama CDs, but that's also a problem I have with it. Most of the story is outside of the game, and you can't really understand it without listening to those drama CDs. And I just think that's a bad way to handle things. Now, you may notice that I'm mainly making broad statements here. It's because I completely picked apart the games in the original video, and I don't feel like doing that again. So I'm sorry about that, but rest assured, I do know the whole story as seen in the games, and I do know some of the lore from the drama CDs as well, although at this stage I have not listened to all of them. And yes, I know you're probably thinking, well, I'm not really allowed to critique the story if I don't know all of it, right? Well, why should I have to listen to a drama CD in order to understand the whole story? Like I said, that is a problem I have. That is the entire point. Another thing I didn't really like was how they handled the four guardians. Harpuya gets plenty of screen time, but his character arc feels incomplete. Fafnir and Leviathan don't really get anything, and Phantom dies in the first game for some reason. Not sure why they decided to do that. That seems like a strange writing decision, but it is what it is. And then the four guardians aren't even mentioned at all in Zero 4, except for Tech Kraken wanting revenge for Phantom, which is another really strange writing decision, in my opinion, because since they played such a large part in the story beforehand, we should at least know what happened to them after the fight with Omega. But nope, we don't even know if they're dead or still alive or missing in action or what. And I'm just gonna come out and say it, they really wasted Copy X. He was such a cool concept, a version of X that had all of the knowledge but none of the experience. And I just think they could have done a lot more with him. But instead, they completely wasted him by blowing him up unceremoniously so that Vile could take the villain spotlight. I'm sorry, I'm still upset about that. I just have a lot of issues with Zero 3 in general. Also, speaking of Omega, since we've talked about him before, I think he is a very underwhelming villain. Like, yeah, he's got the cool aura and all, but he doesn't really have a personality or anything. He's just an obstacle. And I get that's the point, but that's not what I like to see in a major villain. And I really don't like Vile as a villain. Like, I know that he had the highest stakes of any Mega Man villain, but he's just not that interesting to me. He's got a very standard villain personality, and the way they handled him in the backstory was incredibly stupid. Like, you mean to say we have this guy who started a war that nearly wiped out all of humanity, and you punish him by making him immortal and exiling him? What is the logic behind that? Another character I feel like they wasted is actually Ciel. I think that they had something good going with her conceptually, but she doesn't actually do that much. I mean, she makes a CL system and all that, but she doesn't develop and she doesn't accomplish much of anything else in the story. Now, credit where it's due, I really liked that moment in Zero Three when Vile tried to take the CL system and CL actually stood up to him. I just wish they'd continued off of that. Also, while we're on the subject of CL and Zero Three, I'm sorry I hate the intro. I really don't like how Zero treats CL in the intro. It just seems needlessly cruel. Maybe it's just me, though. Oh, yeah, and I almost forgot the baby elves. They were built up as important plot devices in Zero Two, and then at the end of Zero Three, they were unceremoniously killed off without even any acknowledgement. This seems particularly strange because Ciel was acting like she wanted Zero to retrieve them instead of destroying them before. I don't know. And one more character I take major issue with is Kraft. I was interested in his story at first. I thought he was a cool character, and then they just pulled the rug out from under me with what happened at the end. I'm still not really sure how to describe it other than I think Kraft might be the single stupidest character I've ever seen in a video game. And okay, one more thing I have to complain about is Zero Four's ending. I usually don't like stories where the protagonist dies in the end, so I am biased here. But it was just handled in a way that put me off, especially with the credits sequence and CL crying through the whole thing. That just felt like a gut punch, like the game was guilt tripping you for beating it. I don't know, Oblivion did it better. Okay, now that I've gotten my major complaints out of the way, I'd like to talk about some other things that I actually liked, since I already mentioned a few of them. And we gotta start with El Piso. Probably one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I just think he's really well written. He's a fascinating character with a lot more depth than it seems at first. And also, I love his design. And I mentioned Harpuya before and how I think his character arc is incomplete. But honestly, despite that, he's still a really good character. I just wanted more of him, you know? Also, his dialogue after you defeat him the first time in Zero Two lives rent free in my head. And this might surprise some people, but another character I really liked was Neige. I wish she had a lot more screen time than she did, and she deserves better than Kraft. I think there are a lot of really cool concepts in Mega Man Zero. It's just that the execution isn't the best. That's really what it boils down to. It could have been a really good story. Also, Zero Four's intro is genuinely some of the best writing in the entire series. They really nailed the atmosphere with Area Zero, and it was the first time I really felt like it properly connected back to the X series. I just wish it was more fun to actually play the intro, but part of that is skill issue, I'll admit. The Z Knuckle just isn't as good as the rods, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, one more thing, the music. I like the music overall, especially in Zero Two and Zero Four. I mentioned Esperanto earlier. It's probably my favorite song in the entire soundtrack. But I also really love most of Zero Two's soundtrack, and Old Life Space from Zero Three is another favorite. With that being said, I will never forgive Scrapped Beat for hurting my ears. And unfortunately, the ZX version of Cannonball is just infinitely superior to the original, so I can't count that one. But, yeah, since I'm not doing a deep dissection this time, I think that about covers everything. I might have a few more individual complaints that I'll leave in the comment section if it comes to that. But overall, yeah, just a summary of the problems I have with Mega Man Zero as well as the things I like about it. My problems with it. Zero, the bare bones writing, the drama CD stuff, most of the antagonists that aren't El Piso, a lot of wasted character potential. Yeah. Oh, and scrapped beat. The things I like about it, some of the ideas, El Piso, a bunch of other characters, the triple rod and the chain rod, most of the soundtrack. Yeah, I think that about covers it. So, yeah, I do think the games are good. They're just not as good as the fandom makes them out to be. If I were to rank them on a tier list, Zero One would probably be a C or a B. Zero Two is a very solid A. Zero Three falls down to D tier, and Zero Four is also in D tier. Originally, I would have put Zero Three in F tier. It's by far my least favorite game in the Zero series and probably the whole Mega Man series. But I do appreciate it a bit more nowadays, so I'll give it a bump up. And now I'm going to have a little bonus section where I talk about the reasons why I came to appreciate the Zero series more. Fair warning, this involves fan fiction, so you can stop watching the video now if you want to. I'll give a pretty good buffer for it, though. Basically, it was because I decided to rewrite the whole story as a fanfic. And rewriting the whole story as a fanfic allowed me to get into the characters' heads a bit better, and I also learned a lot about the story that I wouldn't have otherwise, because sometimes I had to research and dig deep. And I originally started writing the fanfic out of spite because I was so annoyed with the story, and it ended up making me appreciate the story a lot more. Go figure. I try not to advertise too much, but this project has been a passion project of mine for over a year, so I'll just come out and say it. It's called Mega Man Zill and it's uploaded on AO3. I'm currently in the process of revising it. The story is basically what if Mega Man Zero, but Zero's son is the protagonist? Except it is wildly divergent, so if you do go to read that, keep that in mind because it might not be your cup of tea. I'll give you that warning. But that's all for this time. If you've gotten this far, thank you for watching. I might put out a video about Mega Man ZX, and if I do, the tone will be very different from this one. Pretty much because my opinion on ZX is completely the opposite to my opinion on Zero. So, yeah. But anyway, for now, goodbye.